Hi, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk, Black Women Exploring Journeys in Mental Health. I'm Sierra Hall, and my pronouns are she, her. And I'm a senior business development manager here at her campus, but more importantly, I'll be your host for today. I'm so happy to be welcoming you to this conversation. Let's Talk, Black Women Exploring Journeys in Mental Health is all about exploring the individual and collective journey that each and every one of us experiences with our mental health. This is for anyone who identifies as a Black woman. And the passion behind this conversation is so near and dear, not only to my heart, but also to our incredible partner, Kate Spade, New York. Mental health comes with a lot of stigmas, especially for Black women, whose mental health has long been underfunded, undervalued, and underacknowledged. That's why we've teamed up to bring together Black women of all backgrounds to discuss all things mental health. Today is all about no fluff, no filler, just real conversations, real perspectives, and advice from women who look like you and me. And you're an important piece of this conversation too. We want to see y'all going off live in the chat in the box to the right of your screen. We also have our expert speakers here live with us in the chat as well. So say hi, y'all. And representatives from Crisis Text Line here for you as well. Monitoring the chat and ready to talk with you and answer your mental health questions. We hope you'll leave today with valuable resources, new connections, and a greater sense of empowerment and strength to help you take on your mental health journey with confidence. We understand that these conversations can be tough and you may want to opt out. So you will see content warnings on your screen at the start and during a few of our sessions today. If you need mental health support at any time, you can always text KS Helps to 741-741 to connect with Crisis Text Line in the US. And you can also find even more resources from Kate Spade, New York, and the Mental Health Coalition at thementalhealthcoalition.org/resources. And from Black Girls Smile at blackgirlsmile.org. So take a minute right now to share this link, katespade.hercampus.com, with your bestie, your sisters, your cousins, your mothers, and your aunties, and tell them to join us right now and let them know that this is the conversation that they've been waiting for. We know that mental health is not a linear or static experience, but a journey that changes and grows as we do. We hope that our program leaves you feeling that there is a little more space in the world and in your heart to have these conversations about mental health. First, we're going to talk about something that is so relevant at all times, but especially for the past 2 years, burnout. We're joined by my great friend, Dr. Ashley Elliott, also known as Dr. Vivid, and two of our incredible Her Campus community members, Nyla and Sade.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Dr. Ashley Elliott, but I'm also affectionately known as Dr. Vivid. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am a doctor of clinical psychology, a therapist, a mental health advocate, and an author. I am so excited to take a few minutes to talk with you guys, and I have two amazing guests to talk about women and burnout, specifically Black women in burnout. Ladies, could you introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Sade. I'm a content creator and activist, and I'm the founder of Black Voices Matters. My pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nyla. Pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a creator in LA. I absolutely love traveling and helping others live their life to the fullest. And Dr. Vivid, we would love to hear more about you and get this convo started.
Well, thank you. So I am a therapist in private practice in Washington, D.C., and my office is located in Arlington, Virginia. I am a big proponent of mental health and wellness, and this conversation as a Black woman means so much to me, as the topic of burnout is so embedded in all of our lives, honestly. You ladies, I know, have such incredible backgrounds, lives, and passions. And like any Black woman, especially right now, I know that you have felt feelings related to burnout and pressures of doing it all. So tell me a little bit more about your personal experiences with burnout and the idea that you have to be everything and do it all. Sade, you want to start?
I feel like for me, I'm definitely feeling a lot lately. I've graduated college last year, so I'm definitely feeling the pressure of getting a job, finding a job, and also dealing with my chronic illness. Endometriosis had definitely put me at a setback. And then on top of that, being a person with depression and anxiety is like so many things tackling all at once that I do feel like I feel burnout more than I'm used to. And I feel like now it's time for me to take a step back and not be afraid to rest. And also remembering not everything's going to work in my timing. Everything happens in divine timing. And that it is okay to rest and not to be afraid to just let loose and not always feel like I need to run.
Yes, I can definitely attest to that, the running mentality. I also recently graduated from school back in December of 2020, of course, right in the midst of the pandemic, and being surrounded by so many other successful students, a lot of engineers, consultants, CS majors. I'm looking at them like, okay, I have to get there too. On top of that, even just the career field, I'm surrounded by other influencers and content creators, and I am very inspired by what I'm seeing. But sometimes you can get caught up in it to want to do so much to try and get there. Last year, I found myself working a 9 to 5, having a side social media job, and then managing my personal brand. And I looked up one day and I was like, I can barely breathe. I need to stop. I need to slow down because I don't have to do 100 things at once to get to where I want to go.
Absolutely. Y'all are Jills of all trades. You have your hands in many pots associated with your vision. And it's often common to look at what other people are doing and go like, I have to do just the same. I have to do what you're doing. Especially as a Black woman, we are taught we have to work twice as hard and twice as long to be able to compete with our non-Black counterparts. And it feeds into that idea of grind culture. You got to work until you pass out. You got to work until you die. And that's not what life is about. And, being a Black woman, especially the idea of superwoman syndrome, that we as women have to figure out a way to do it all. We have to take care of home. We have to take care of work. You better have a hobby. You have to be social. You have to have other passions, and you can't complain and you can't vent. And you have to keep those emotions intact. And also, don't you show too much emotion, because then we question whether you're competent enough to handle it, or nay, you may be seen as the angry Black woman. So we want to kind of shift from that idea and humanize ourselves so that we can understand that burnout and grind culture are not rites of passage. There are things that negatively impact our mental health and wellness overall. It's so important to practice self-preservation. I tell clients all the time that you have to take time for yourself. You have to make sure that you're pouring into yourself, whether it's taking 5, 10, 15 minutes to yourself to just relax, unwind, disconnect, and recharge, because you won't be able to run like that forever. And you'll find that, talking about depression and anxiety, those symptoms will flare if you do not pour into yourself. So tell me some of the ways that you guys are pouring into yourselves so we can defeat the burnout monster. Nyla, you want to start?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely something I've been doing this year is giving myself permission to actually rest. And rather than only resting when I hit burnout and I'm like at my wit's end, I've developed a system where I do self-care and I love on myself once a week. So every Sunday, I do a couple of things. One, bubble baths and watching a really good Netflix show. My second thing is I love to explore the outdoors and being outside in nature. That really helps to ground me. And then lastly, something that anyone could do is yoga or meditation. And you can find resources online, free ones, like looking at videos on YouTube. Something I used was Aloe Moves. And what I really appreciated is it's a workout type of app where you can do different classes online, but they had a section for mindfulness and and that was so cool to me because I had never done meditations before. They had classes teaching you how to do it. And that big shift for me has really helped to cope with burnout, but also kind of the preventative method to make sure that I'm not getting to burnout all the time.
Like for me, I definitely tackle my burnout or before I reach burnout with journaling. Journaling is one of my number one things I do. Also reading. I love mythology books because it takes me to a whole new world and I can feel like a release of fresh breath air. Also just playing with pets. My sister has this cute little pug that I play with all the time and take her, and it's just so therapeutic. And also music. I think just getting up in your room by yourself and dancing around or just singing around is definitely something that can release you. And it's something I do. And it feels so, so good because I feel free. And I feel like that's what you want to be. You want to be free instead of feeling all the time just very tight.
Dr. Vivid, we would love to hear some more approaches or techniques that you'd like to recommend for either preventing burnout or coping with it when we ever find ourselves there.
Absolutely. I love the things that you guys have already shared. It's like you have been listening to my client sessions, which is a HIPAA violation. We'll talk to you about that later. But, you know, all of these things, taking music into your daily living and getting moving, journaling so you can get out those emotions that you may not yet feel comfortable with sharing other people, but at least they're released until you feel safe enough to share those with other people. Definitely getting sleep, because once our body is out of alignment, if we don't pay attention to our mental health needs, our physical needs will start to kick in. The mind and body are connected. So we don't want you ignoring if you're having headaches, if you're having backaches, if you're sleeping too much, you're not sleeping enough, if there are changes in your eating, if you're feeling frustrated to the point where everything is an annoyance, but you can't figure out why, if you're feeling like I'm actually getting sleep, but I'm always tired. All of those things are signs that you are under a lot of stress and you're probably approaching, or if not in the room with, burnout. You want to make sure that if you're going to therapy, I'm a proponent, you go to therapy, you're processing those emotions, and you're doing everything you can to take time for yourself. Whether it's 5, 10, 15 minutes, you can make it happen. And also learning to say no. You don't have to always do and go, go, go. No is a complete sentence.
I feel like saying no is definitely my struggle, and creating boundaries with friends and family, especially family, is something I feel like I struggle with. Like, if you don't want to go out that day, they always be like, oh, you always want to go out. And then it's like trying to explain to people why you don't want to go out, but then them not fully understanding. Do you have any advice on how to set boundaries and how to not be afraid to say no?
Yes. One, people who love you and respect you should understand that you saying no is for your safety. And there's a such thing as positive selfishness versus negative selfishness. And saying no to preserve our energy and to preserve our emotions, that's selfish, but it's good and it's needed. Also, remembering that your boundaries are made for you. Most of the time we set a boundary because you're encroaching upon something that you shouldn't. You've made me feel emotionally, physically, mentally, like I'm not as safe as I could be. So I'm doing this to protect me. My boundaries are my own. They don't belong to other people. So controversy, but their feelings being hurt and the offense of you can't do it, we have to understand that we are not everything to everyone. So we're allowed to set those boundaries and to stand firm in them so that we can preserve ourselves and be our best selves. You got to show up for yourself before you show up for everyone else. And I think that a part of this also, as we have in this conversation, is understanding that we don't have anything to prove to anyone. We're doing and we are enough. And we have to set those boundaries to continue making sure that we are enough. So I think something that we can really take away from this conversation is that though we feel this pressure to keep going and to do it all, that we don't have to. And the vulnerability is a superpower. And it's all right to say, hey, I'm not okay, or I need help, or I'm feeling this way. And connecting with other people in our circle, in our tribe, so that we can feel supported and get the help we need. So we're not hitting that burnout wall. We're not feeling drained all the time. I believe that we can commit to doing at least one thing a week to fight this burnout monster and to stand up for ourselves against grind culture. So I would love to hear what you guys will be doing to fight the burnout monster in your own lives. Sade, you want to start?
But like for me, I'm definitely going to be going to therapy more. So I therapy this week, so I'm really excited about that because I feel like therapy just creates a release for you, and just everything just feels so much better talking to somebody. Also, I feel like just talking to friends more. So like talking to friends helps so much because you can just be free, and also you could just talk to friends about anything if you need to vent to your friend. But I also want everybody to know, if you before venting to a friend, make sure you ask them permission, because not everybody wants you to trauma them. So make sure you ask permission. And a few resources I want to shout out is Therapy for Black Girls. Therapy for Black Girls helped me find my therapist who's a Black woman, and I definitely recommend that for people. And also Endo for Black Girls, if you suffer with endometriosis like I do, is definitely an amazing community that helped me with learning more about endometriosis and just getting to support one another who has endometriosis.
Awesome.
Yeah, heavy on the therapy. I also recently started that again. Can confirm that if it's, for you, it is a good thing to try out. Something that I'll continue to do on a weekly basis is giving my own personal time in the morning. I think it's so important to start your mornings off with time to yourself, getting you grounded for the day. I recently purchased the 5-minute journal. I'm sure you've probably seen it like all over social media. And when I tell you, just a couple of minutes in a positive mindset, being gracious about things in the morning, talking about what you're looking forward to do in your day, it is such a good mindset shift and a good way to start out your days. And you might be really sad, but at least you're starting out and you're trying. So those little steps, they will start to build up. And it definitely helps to continue that process of loving yourself, taking time for yourself, and kind of helping in your journey of burnout.
Awesome. I love those resources, especially when we talk about chronic illness. Sometimes we feel like we're alone, especially when we talk about endometriosis, which is a condition that definitely affects a lot of Black women and Black girls. And 5-minute journal, it's amazing. It's so amazing how a few minutes of your day and taking time for yourself and gratitude and reflection can change the trajectory of your day. I also want to throw out the resource of Psychology Today to find therapists, psychiatrists, nurse practitioners for your therapy and medication management needs. It gives you the ability to check and see what your insurance is. If you want to, especially representation matters, finding a therapist that looks like you, especially for Black women, we are underserved when it comes to finding therapists who are Black women, but we're there. I'm here. So you can look at Psychology Today and set your preferences. Do you want a woman? Do you want a man? Do you want a Black person that represents the LGBTQIA community? Me too. Or if you have any religious preferences, all of those things are available on Psychology Today. And I want to remind everyone that as we've talked about taking time for ourselves, pauses are not permanent, and burnout does not have to be a part of your life. Burnout is something that we can avoid just by taking time for ourselves. You guys have been so amazing. Thank you so much, ladies, for being open and honest and having this conversation with me. And I want everyone to remember that all the resources we mentioned today will be linked right below at katespade.hercampus.com. And if you guys want to connect with me, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter at Dr. Vivid, or you can contact me directly by going to drvivid, DoctorVivid.com.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Vivid, Nyla, and Sade for that incredible conversation. Next up, we'll be hearing personal stories from two amazing women in our community, Ivy and Nay.
Hey there, beautiful people. My name is Ivy Coco, and I'm a lifestyle influencer, entrepreneur, and the vice president of Walk Good LA. Walk Good LA is a nonprofit organization that I started with my brother and my cousin, and together we are a family that brings people together from all walks of life to fight for racial equity through the health, wellness, and the arts. In 2020, when the pandemic started, as a family, we were so confused at how we were going to be in the house together and how we were going to keep our mental health afloat. But we really were able to find so many great exercises like yoga and journaling and open dialogue as a family to really fight this pandemic. And then when the racial uprising started to happen in, the middle of 2020, we said, we can't just stay at the house anymore. We have to, fight for our community, fight for the people that look like us. The pandemic forced everybody to really check in on their mental health. But being a Black person, being a Black Gen Zer in the day and age that we're living in today, we are seeing people that look like us being shot and killed right in front of our eyes, on screen, on television, being recorded. And you never stop to really think about what that does to your mental health, what that does to your psyche. How do you process, a man being killed or a woman being killed by police and law enforcement? And that's why we started Walk Good LA, is because we started as a protest for 10 weeks straight, but then we ended up transitioning into doing yoga in the park. And now we're at the park every Sunday in Los Angeles doing yoga and helping people heal. And we provide a safe space for almost 200 people every Sunday. Walk Good is a Jamaican euphemism that our grandmother told us. And yes, we are Jamaican, so we big ourselves up as Jamaican Americans. But it means to walk in good stride and get to your destination safely. And we wanted to tell our community, it's okay, we're on this journey with you and we're all walking good together. For me, I take my mental health very seriously, and it's something that I make sure I check on every single day. And the first thing that I do when I wake up is journal. Keeping a gratitude journal to remind myself 3 things that I'm grateful for, and setting an intention or an affirmation when I begin my day. Journaling is a release for me. Journaling, you're able to express yourself to yourself for yourself, because that's what life is all about. You're not in competition with anybody else besides yourself. Another thing that I do to check in on my mental health is running. It's something that is another big release for me. It's something where I can just pop on my headphones and just think about what I want to do and who I want to become. I really started running back in 2019. I lost my grandmother in 2018, and dealing with depression, you start to realize that you're in a hole that you feel like you can't get out of. And running was the release for me that allowed me to get myself out of that hole. 3 years later, I'm training for my first half marathon, and that's something I probably never would have imagined if I didn't go through hard times. The third thing that I do to really check in on my mental health is yoga. Yes, I'm a yogi, and I was introduced to yoga by my amazing younger cousin, aka my little sister from a different mister. And she was really so good at yoga. I was so impressed, and I went to one of her classes and I felt so much better about myself. You never know how you might feel when you just get your body moving. And sometimes body movement can really change your perspective on how you feel. When you feel good, you look good. And when you look good, you feel good. And when I'm consistently showing up for myself, when I consistently feel good about myself, I'm able to do better. I'm able to be a better leader. I'm able to be a better sister. I'm able to be a better friend. And when I'm healing, I'm growing. And when I'm growing, I continue to evolve. And I never want to stop evolving. So all of the things I do are a part of who I am. It's a part of my journey. And I just want to tell you to make sure you get a checkup from the neck up. It's so important. Check in on your health, your heart, and your head.
Hi everyone, my name is Nay. My Instagram is naylynette.ig, and I'm a big advocate for self-care and mental health. I've always been a perfectionist and always wanted to always look my best and make sure that everyone was happy around me and putting other people before myself. Around the pandemic, things were going pretty well for me. I got a new puppy, I got a new car, I got a new apartment, but those things didn't really make me happy. I didn't feel a sense of fulfillment and joy. I felt emptiness. I felt like there was more that I wanted, more that I needed, that there was more to life than just external things, and I thought these things would really make me happy, so I was confused. I really felt really apathetic to a lot of things. I was uninterested in things. Things didn't really bring me joy like they used to because I felt like I had got a lot of the things that I wanted and I just didn't understand why I felt the way that I felt. I was always the person that had to have every hair put in place and always look my best every time I went outside. Like I wouldn't even go anywhere really without makeup or anything. And my dad pointed out to me, he's like, you gotta be happy with yourself and you got to be happy on the inside as well and not just on the outside. And that's when I took the step to try therapy. Especially in the Black community, therapy is something that is very stigmatized and a lot of people don't talk about and a lot of people don't seek. So it was extremely hard for me. And even when I did start, it was difficult to tell people about it. I only shared that I went to therapy. I started about a year ago. I only shared it with a few people because when I would share with people, I would expect the, oh, what's wrong with you? Why are you starting therapy? You know, like think I'm crazy or something. But it's much more than that. It was having a safe space to really share my emotions and share how I felt without fear of judgment or a fear of wanting to look perfect and not want to show any imperfections or anything. And it also gave me a lot of clarity as well because it forced me to be honest with myself and really think about myself and learn myself. Self-awareness is really key. Knowing what your triggers are, knowing what upsets you, knowing what makes you happy, what doesn't make you happy, and setting proper boundaries with people really changes your life. It really changed my life, and just getting to know yourself. Sometimes we're just always just on the go, just keep going, but then not really taking the time for ourselves, and that's so important. And my life has been different ever since, and prioritizing myself has made me so much more happier internally, which spills out to other parts of my life. So I would encourage you to take that time for yourself, whether it's reading books, going to therapy, watching motivational videos, but just really spending time with yourself, because these external things mean nothing if you're not happy and have true peace and joy on the inside. And sometimes it's not always going to be easy, but you just have to take that leap of faith and do what's best for you.
Thank you, Ivy and Nay, for sharing your stories. I'm so inspired by the self-love you both cultivated within yourselves and your communities. Speaking of community, our next segment is all about building sisterhood and community. We're joined by our community members, Zion and Siobhan Jones, a licensed clinical social worker and the founder and CEO of the Mental Wellness Collective.
Hi, everyone. My name is Siobhan Jones. I am a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of the Mental Wellness Collective, and my pronouns are she and her.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zion. I'm a junior psychology major at Fisk University, and my pronouns are she, her.
Zion, I am so excited that we are able to sit and have this conversation to talk about, building sisterhood and community, because it's really something that we don't talk about enough as women, but especially as Black women, something that needs to be talked about because our mental health is impacted when we don't have sisterhood, when we don't build sisterhood and community intentionally. So I am a licensed clinical social worker, as I mentioned before, and I've been in the mental health field for over 10 years. I've probably worked in every area of mental health. So if you name it, I probably have worked there because I love it. It's my passion. And on this journey, the Mental Wellness Collective was really designed as a way to build community. So it's a virtual therapy practice specifically for Black women and girls. And my main goal is to create community and sisterhood for women to understand that you are not by yourself, that you do not have to deal with problems or struggles by yourself, and that there are people who are willing to listen and to help you. You know, just a little backstory, when I was in college on this journey to become a therapist, I dealt with depression and I struggled for some time, but I never told anyone. I dealt with it by myself. I would go home at night and cry myself to sleep, and I would wake up in the morning and put on my happy face and go out and go to school and go to work. So everyone thought I had everything together, but little did they know that I was struggling. And so years later, as I was really trying to cultivate my business, I remembered that part of my story. And I wanted to create a collective, a community of women to be able to support each other, to also to listen, to offer support, but also where people could come and feel seen. So often I hear Black women, when they talk to me, they don't feel seen. So the Mental Wellness Collective is that platform where you can get therapy, you can find community and support, and really feel seen, that you don't have to deal with these struggles by yourself.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you brought up your experience with college, being a college student. I can definitely relate to that. So I carry a lot on me as a college student. I'm also an older sister, and I just, I want to be the best example for my younger sister. And I always want to show her that you can be strong, you can do anything you want to do, but it gets hard.
Yes, being a big sister can be a lot, for sure. Lots and lots on your plate. But I wanted to ask you, what does your support system look like? Who do you include in it? Because so often people wonder, like, who's a support? What does that look like? So who is in your support system, and what does that look like in the impact it has on your mental health?
Being here, I've made some very, very, very wonderful bonds and relationships with people that are now in my support system. And I just love having them with me because they relate to a lot of the same things that I am going through. And we help each other a lot. Just by talking to each other, being there for each other, being in the same space, and just creating a very comfortable environment for each other.
I love that. I love that, because sometimes support doesn't look like what we think it should look like in our minds. And so being able to be open to that is super important. So let's talk a little about what makes a good support system. I want to hear about how you identify people who should be in that support for you.
So when I guess I wouldn't say that like my main goal is to seek a support system. I truly want, a good friendship or a good relationship with someone. And so when meeting someone and creating that bond, I just want to be able to be comfortable with them. I want to be able to take a walk with them, watch a movie with them, eat food with them. And I feel like doing those things creates that bond where you get to the support, and where you get to serious conversations that you need to have. And when you have them with those people, they're people that know you for who you are, just because they've seen you do everyday things, or they've seen you talk about your passions. And it's easier for them to help you because you let your walls down, or, you were vulnerable to them. So yeah.
Absolutely. You brought up such a good point. One of the key elements of a support system is the vulnerability. Being able to show up as your full self and be vulnerable, and know that I'm not going to be judged, that the person who I'm sitting across from is going to listen to me, and they're going to hear me out fully. And we may not always agree with each other, but I know that you have my best interests at heart. So it definitely sounds like you are well on your way to being able to have that support and that community and sisterhood that is needed. But vulnerability is top tier to be able to engage in that kind of conversations, for sure.
Yes. So how does self-expression in a community play a role when it comes to opening up in mental health?
A lot of times we are just looking for people who can accept us for who we are, but also maybe have similar experiences. What keeps us isolated kind of in our little boxes, or maybe even feeling like we can't express ourselves, is the fear of judgment. And a lot of times we feel like we're by ourselves. Nobody else is dealing with this. Nobody else is depressed. Nobody else is dealing with anxiety. Nobody else on campus is struggling with making friends. And so when you are looking to build community, it's being open and saying, hey, it's not just you, it's me too. I'm struggling. I want to build connection. And so when you show up as your full self, it allows people to really connect with you and identify with you.
So what kind of other safe spaces would you recommend as far as students to seek out?
Absolutely. So on campus, there's so many opportunities to build community through clubs and organizations. I know that you are a part of some of those clubs and organizations, but also getting out of your comfort zone. Taking on a hobby that you probably maybe haven't taken on before, joining a team, maybe in your church. Maybe there's a group that you want to join, but you're not quite sure about. That's how you build community, when you are open to the experience of something new. Also, not even just looking for physical face-to-face connections, but virtually. I think COVID has shown us that the digital space is needed, because when the world shuts down, we need to be able to have spaces where we can still connect with other people. And so thinking outside of the box, how can I connect with people on campus, whether it is virtually or in person, a community forum? Finding those ways are perfect outlets, but also making sure they're safe spaces. And so when you create those safe and supportive spaces by really connecting with people who have common goals and interests, that maybe you weren't able to seek before.
Yes, I also feel like events like this also help, because in the virtual setting, you're not forced to go out, but it's like, if you want to sit and listen, or there's an event that talks about something that you have been going through, you can easily log into there, at your own time, and you can stay in your own space and be able to really dive into the conversation.
Absolutely. And as we are really navigating this pandemic space, I really encourage women to seek out community in any way that you can, whatever it looks like, being open to unconventional spaces, putting yourself out there, connecting with people. I know that sometimes people are very introverted, so they don't want to fully put themselves out there, but I promise you, an extrovert is going to find you. If you just put yourself in the space, they will find you and bring you in. So being open to that experience is helpful too, for sure. Well, Zion, thank you so much for sitting and talking with me today. I know that it's going to help so many people, just having this conversation about building community and sisterhood and safe spaces, and how to really just connect with each other is really important, and especially in young adulthood, as we're all just trying to figure it out. We are just collectively we're all out here winging it. We really are. I think from college and beyond. And so really having the conversations about how do we wing it together? How do we figure it out in this thing called life? So thank you so much for sitting and speaking with me.
Siobhan, Zion, thank you so much for that conversation. You're right. Building the right support system as a young woman, especially around your college years, can be really tough to navigate, but your tips were so helpful. Thank you again for sharing that with us. Next, we'll be hearing from another amazing woman in our community who will be sharing her personal journey to body positivity. Ray.
Hi everybody, my name is Ray. I go by I am Ray Simone on Instagram, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my journey through body positivity and also my journey through therapy and working on my trauma and depression throughout my weight loss journey. So I started my weight loss journey back in 2017. I started documenting it on Instagram, and at the time of being on Instagram, I thought that there was not a lot of people that looked like me on social media. There was not a lot of Black women on the same journey as myself. There was not a lot of Black women that actually got a lot of recognition on social media at the time. My highest weight was 275 pounds, and I thought, once I lose weight, I'm going to have the ideal body. I just can't wait to lose a weight. I want to be able to feel comfortable and happy in my skin. Even after weight loss, after losing 100 pounds, nearly a whole human being I lost in weight loss, I still felt like I wasn't enough. And that made me so depressed. It made me feel like I worked so hard to get this weight off, and I'm now dealing with another issue of loose skin. So that also caused me to go into depression, because people on social media back then were not showing loose skin. That was not a thing. And that was not something that was widely accepted, nor was it widely even spoken about. It caused me to feel like I was out of place. Like I had no place on social media to feel comfortable. I had no space to feel like I could be myself. So eventually I started to starve myself for social media, because I still didn't have that picture perfect body. There was no way in my mind that I could get that body without starving myself, because that was the culture, the toxic culture on social media. It was starving yourself to look just like this. And as time went on, I started to realize, was I really unhappy with what was being displayed on social media? Or did I have a lot of uncured trauma that I dealt with as a kid? I was bullied about my lips being too big. I was bullied about my eyebrows being too bushy. I was bullied about my skin being dark. But it didn't just come from school kids. It actually came from family members also. After I started realizing that the way that I felt wasn't okay, and I really knew that I was going down a really bad path, unfortunately, I decided in 2019 to start working on my mental health and started to go to therapy. And unfortunately, therapy is not widely spoken in the Black community at all. It's not something that we typically do as Black people, and it's not something that's also pushed on the Black community. Going to therapy helped me to realize that I can now start sharing my journey with other people and start being an example to the younger community and to the new generation growing up now. Therapy helped me so much to realize that the way that I am is perfectly fine. And I know that I can help so many people now. Thank you guys so much for listening. And I hope that you guys can take something from my journey, and hopefully it encourages and motivates you. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you, Ray. We're so grateful to you for sharing your story. Next up, we have a very special chat with the incredible Logan Browning of Netflix's hit show, Dear White People, moderated by the amazing content creator and podcast host, Alexis Barber.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be sitting down today with our very special guest, Logan Browning.
Hi.
So I'm Alexis Barber. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a content creator based in Brooklyn, New York. And Logan, thank you so much for being here with us today to chat about your mental health journey and how your Black womanhood has affected it. So super excited to chat with you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Logan Browning. I'm an actress. My pronouns are she, her, and I am stoked to be here. This is going to be such a special chat today.
Amazing. Well, let's just jump right into it. So I know you've been in the business for a very long time. So I'm curious for you, what has your mental health journey looked like from the point where you started your career as a teenager to now?
Well, I mean, we could get into how old I am now, and then I started at 14 and then a lot of life happened. Or we could get into the fact that, I mean, when I was 14, I was just really excited about being a part of the entertainment industry, and I didn't know what any of it meant. I was coming out to LA, not on my own, but I was away from my parents a lot. But what I did have was a really great, support system, friends, family. And to me, those things matter. Like I was a churchgoer, like I had a lot of things that I was a journaler. And so for me, when I think about my mental health from then to now, I do think it was very, I had a really great relationship with how to manage the healthiness of it. And I've just graduated into gaining more tools and more access to the things that I feel help me.
I think that's a really interesting background, but also something that a lot of women and Black women can relate to is not feeling like they had the tools earlier on. I know for me, I went to boarding school at a very early age to escape a super chaotic household. And so figuring it out on your own is often what has to happen, even if you're not ready for it. So for you, I guess, what were some of the tools that you developed over time? You mentioned journaling and of course your meditations that really helped you, get to where you are now, and even maybe like led you to having a therapist.
Really, a lot of what led me to any of my breakthroughs were breakdowns. So it's really always been those points in my life where things just feel incredibly dark, incredibly depressing. There's no way out. There's no way forward. I don't know how I got here. Like those moments are always the ones that make me go, okay, what's next? How do I get out of this? Who do I look to for help? That's kind of how I've related and equated it in my personal life, is just accepting that I'm going to have these crazy moments. It's always those really, really dark times that have propelled me to the next step.
I think that's a really beautiful way to acknowledge that life is not always going to be this like perfect reel of happiness all the time, but in fact, there are low points and there are high points, and framing these low points as something to help you get to that next level is something I've only recently learned myself, but is really helpful when you're sitting in that space and you sort of have some light at the end of the tunnel too. And knowing that sitting in that space is what's going to help you is a really beautiful reminder I think a lot of people need. And for Black women specifically, at least in my experience with the Black women that I know, a lot of times we are pushing to be perfect all of the time and not letting ourselves have those down moments. So I'm curious for you, how has your identity impacted your relationship with mental health over time?
You bring up a really wonderful point and a really important topic. It's something I have felt, and I truly believe that, every woman on the planet is going to feel pressure and is going to feel the pressure to be perfect. But there is something about being a Black woman specifically. I'll be really specific, a Black woman in America, just with the history and the messaging that's been passed down to us forever. I think about this all the time, being an elementary school student, right? Sitting in social studies class. And maybe at that point, everyone's kind of in the same mindset of like how you identify in the world and what you can grow up to be in the world. And then all of a sudden, everyone opens up their social studies book. And in just that instant, little boys, maybe little boys who happen to be white, go, oh, I can be president because I've seen that I've been president. And then, the little Alexis and Logans of the world, they open up their social studies books and they go, where am I? Oh, that one page, that one time, there I am. And it starts to develop this idea of your personhood, your personality that makes you feel like you already have to fight to be an equal. And those layers, you can imagine all the other scenarios like this, those layers just build up this kind of fight to need to be perfect. But the truth is, having conversations like this and being honest about the fact that we are incredible, every single person, and really exploring the people who have come before us. Because when you think about that example of the social studies book, there were people left out. Right? So a lot of it is listening and learning and finding the people who have come before you so you don't feel like you're the first to do it or you're doing it alone.
Oh, I completely resonate with that. And it's so beautiful to have seen, at least in the entertainment industry or even in politics over the past 10-ish years when I've been paying attention to it all, that we've come very far in that representation. And even when we haven't, if you do a little searching, you'll realize that, like you said, the people are there. They were just left out. And I find that to be a really, calming mechanism when you feel overwhelmed by the world not accepting you for who you are. And so your meditations that you started posting in 2020 are gorgeous. Have you always been a meditator, or has that been something that was after, you were in your career for a while, or did you sort of grow up with it as a teenager?
I was not always a meditator. I started meditating after I did a show called Hit the Floor, because I was going to yoga a lot. And at the end of yoga, they have you lay on your back. And I noticed when I would lay in Shavasana and I'm like, oh, I'm quiet. I'm in communion with myself in a way I've never been. I've always been someone who prays. And what I've realized is a lot of my prayer had been petitioning, but not deep listening. Mm-hmm. And when I would lay in Shavasana and I would begin these meditations, I found myself listening in a way I'd never listened to before, even as simply as listening to my breath, and how powerful and magical and special it is to just go, oh my God, you're breathing, you're alive. That's your life force. This is a once in a lifetime moment to just notice that you're alive. And so from there, that's when I got interested in going into a meditation studio and trying. And, I tried and I failed and I tried and I failed. And that's the point, is there really is no failing, because it's all about a practice. And when I say fail, I mean what I conceptualized as failing, which was what a lot of people, I think in their minds, that I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I feel that. As someone, I've always tried to meditate, but realizing that you just have to keep going is probably the best, thing you can do for it. So speaking of that, when it comes to meditation or other tools, or even just your life experience, what advice would you give to young women and young Black women who are grappling with their own journeys of career, mental health, and sort of figuring out their next steps?
I would share what's been helpful for me, which is getting to know myself deeply and completely, because specifically for Black women, we can look at our identities as being limiting to just being Black women. Mm-hmm. And I think that the more you explore who you are past that kind of identity label that society wants to put on you and put you in a box, right? It's this balance, trying to find the equilibrium between finding your pride as a Black woman and your identity in that, and then going beyond it. So I think for young women, finding who you are in every possible way. And this isn't you sit down and figure it out in one day thing. This is you're going to be doing, this is your life's work, is identifying who you are. And it's not just words saying I am this, I am this, I am this. It's that inner knowing of I know. And that's it, And for me, again, is being able to see myself in other people, right? So in meditation, there's a mantra called, you can either say I am that or soham. And it's basically saying I am that, and it's saying I am Alexis, I am that tree, I am that curtain, I am that, I am everything around me. And so I think finding this balance of seeing yourself in everything around you, and having that be a part of having your understanding of who you are. I think I may be making this a bit bigger in the moment, but I think that everyone is also equipped to understand what I mean.
I absolutely agree with you. It's a journey everyone has to have for themselves, because we are all unique, but we are all interconnected. So thank you so much for sitting down with me today. It's been wonderful to hear about your mental health journey and how you've grown into the individual you are today. So thank you so much.
So I think I'm an even bigger Logan Browning fan than I was before. That was so beautiful. Thank you again, Logan, for being a part of this conversation. And thank you, Alexis, for hosting. Next up, we have real powerful stories from some more members of our community. So please welcome Maria and Lauren.
I was born in Lekai, Haiti. It is about 6 hours southwest of the capital. And despite what most people might think, my childhood in Haiti was amazing. I had a loving and nurturing community. I was affirmed, and I was always made to believe that I was beautiful and all of the good things. My world turned upside down when I moved to the US at the age of 9. It was a huge transition for me, and at first I was really excited because it's pretty cool to move to the United States from Haiti. So when I came here, it was different. I was teased for not speaking English, and when I did learn English, I was teased for having a thick accent. And also at the time, it was pretty hard to identify as Haitian, as there were so many stereotypes about what Haitians look like, what we ate, what we wore, what we smell like. So I was made fun of for being different, for speaking differently, for looking differently. And transitioning from an environment where my appearance was praised to an environment where I'm being teased for how I look and how I sound was a lot, especially for a 9-year-old. And the bullying never really got easier. I remember my 8th grade year, I was really sad. I now understand that I went through a depressive episode, a series of them, to be honest. I remember that year I attempted to take my life on 3 separate occasions. And I remember on that 3rd try, I remember going to bed with a knife underneath my bed, and I remember stopping myself at attempting and deciding to seek help. But I knew that seeking help within my family or within my home was just not an option. I remember speaking to a family member prior to that last attempt and expressing how I felt, what I was feeling, what I was going through, and that I wanted to take my life away. I felt alone. I didn't want to be a part of this world, and I expressed that. And that particular family member told me, do it. Nobody cares. Like, nobody's going to waste tears on someone who takes their life. And at that moment, I just knew seeking help within my family was just not an option. So I spoke to a friend who is 3 to 4 years older than me, and we spoke to someone at our church. And I remember that experience didn't, quite frankly, changed a whole lot, but it felt good to be able to speak to someone, and it led me to researching ways online to cope with how I was feeling. And over the years, although the bullying stopped, the feelings just evolved into other things. I hated the way I looked. I hated a lot of things about myself. I remember my first year of college, I learned that the university offered free therapy sessions for students. And that was really my first time speaking to a professional about what it was that I was experiencing and going through. I really got to understand what it was that I was feeling, that I was experiencing, and got the proper diagnosis as well as treatments. Those sessions really jumpstart my healing journey, and now I see a therapist every week. I also use other resources like the Shine app, the Liberate app, to practice meditation and mindfulness, and really understanding that my mental health journey is not perfect and it requires work, it requires effort, and I am committed to continuously working on that. But most importantly, I have been able to educate my family members on what mental health really is, although they weren't there for me when I really needed them. But I'm glad they now understand how I felt, and all of my siblings and cousins and other family members that are coming after me will be more understood and heard.
Hi, I'm Lauren Chambers, and I run the Atlanta-based wellness and lifestyle blog, laurenelise.com, Lauren Elise on Instagram. My goal with Lauren Elise is to provide inspiration for other women throughout all aspects of their life, from fitness and nutrition and wellness to self-love, body image and relationships, and everything in between. I want women to feel empowered and strong, to find balance, whatever balance means for them, to know that balance can look different for everyone, and to know how amazing it can feel when you prioritize yourself, when you love yourself, when you put yourself first, and a lot of that has stemmed from my own experience with body image. I have struggled with body image issues from as far back as I can remember, middle school, and it kind of revved itself up over the years and reared its ugly head in college in my early 20s when I started an eating disorder. It's something that I dealt with for several years until I had some family members step up and intervene, and the first step was therapy. I was so in denial at this point of my life. I did not want to go to a therapist. I didn't believe in going to some outsider to help me with something that I didn't even think was a problem in the first place. And finally decided to just go to give in. I was gonna check the box, walk into this appointment, say I was recovered, and just move on with my life. I remember walking into this appointment thinking this was gonna be such a waste of time for myself, for the doctor, for my family. And I walked out 60 minutes later like a light bulb just went off, as cliche as that sounds, thinking, okay, I think my life just changed for the better. It really was a pivotal moment in my mental and emotional health journey. It was my first time ever seeing a therapist, and like many, I thought that going to therapy was a sign of weakness. I thought that there was no point to it. I could just talk to a family member or a friend or not talk to anybody at all. I'll deal with it on my own. And I quickly learned, especially through that first session, but even in sessions to come, how amazing it can feel to be vulnerable with someone who isn't there to judge you. They're not there to form an opinion about you. They're there to listen and to help and to tap into their knowledge and their resources and their tools to help you navigate whatever it is that you're struggling with at that time, mental, emotional, whatever that is. And that feels pretty good. And it's something that now, over 10 years have passed, and I am such a firm believer in seeking out resources, whether it's a therapist or a book or a forum or a community, to help you navigate whatever it is that you're struggling with. And although I'll be going through recovery and through this journey forever, it's something that doesn't just end once you stop going to therapy. I now have the tools and the resources. If I ever feel triggered, if I ever have a bad body image day or a negative thought, I have the tools and the resources that I learned from my therapist over the years to combat those things, to work on myself, to empower other women, to empower myself on a daily basis, which is a pretty amazing feeling. And I don't feel like I could be where I am today if I hadn't walked into that therapy session over 10 years ago. At the end of the day, I just want women to know it's not selfish to put yourself first. We tend to prioritize everyone else around us, kids, spouses, partners, colleagues, bosses, everyone else, and then we kind of just like die down a little bit in the background. And it's just so important. If we're not the best versions, we're not the healthiest versions of ourselves, we're not the best, healthiest versions of ourselves for the people that we love around us. And it took me a long time to understand that and to realize that. And the moment I started to prioritize my health, the moment I started looking at therapy, just like I look at a doctor, I go to the doctor for physical ailments, a headache, a sore ankle, a tummy ache. I now go to a professional when I'm feeling mentally or emotionally drained. If I feel like I got to work through something, I need someone to help me figure it out, whether it's one session or a series of sessions or a community or a book. I look to these other resources and these other professionals to help me navigate something, just like I would my doctor. And at the end of the day, I feel strong and empowered, and I feel sexy knowing that I've put myself first, that I'm taking control of something, and that I'm going to be a better version of myself, for myself, but also for everyone around me. And that's pretty cool.
Thank you, Maria and Lauren, for sharing your personal experiences and your journeys with us. So many of us can relate to your experiences, your struggles, but we also can relate to your victories. And I'm so glad that we're sharing this space to talk about it together. So thank you. Now, for the next segment, we're going to talk about accessing mental health services and resources with Lauren Carson, Executive Director of Black Girls Smile, and our incredible community member, Michael Michelle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Carson. My pronouns are she and her. I am the Executive Director and Founder at Black Girls Smile, Inc.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Michelle Longino. I'm a senior English major at Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. I am so excited to be having this conversation with you today about mental health. I feel like we don't have this conversation enough, so I can't wait to just dive right in.
We are super excited to have this conversation today, focusing on accessing mental health resources, specifically as Black women and girls. So before we get started, do you mind sharing with me just a little bit about your personal mental health journey?
Yeah, definitely. Growing up, I grew up in a predominantly white space. I was pretty much used to always being the only one person of color, the only Black woman in the room. And so I think it played a role on my anxiety and developing kind of a stressful coping mechanisms for being in spaces that aren't meant for me. I had a loving family. I grew up in a loving home full of supportive people, but it was also pretty normal just to develop that strong Black women mentality and say, you know what, this is life, and you just kind of move on with the punches. So growing up and moving on to college, I discovered, wait, that's not always the case. You know, I'm allowed to have feelings and express them to people, and people do want to hear them. So the place that I'm in right now as a young Black woman is figuring out how to allow myself, one, to just feel, discover what mental health issues I'm going through, but also discovering how to find resources and get help. So that's a little bit about me, but I would love to hear more about your mental health journey and how you have developed these skills and gotten to this line of work.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I think your story resonates a lot with me, and resonates. I would like to assume and guess with a lot of young Black women and girls. We were raised and are raised by strong Black women, from our mothers to our grandmothers to our great grandmothers, and there's ways that we can honor their experiences and the things that they've taught us, but also make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. There's a way to navigate generationally and move to a place of generational healing. These are things that we can then pass along to the young people that interact with us. So I think that, again, just really want to thank you for sharing your story and experiences. A little bit about my mental health journey. I was diagnosed with clinical depression at the age of 15. I found out mental health issues kind of ran in my family, but wasn't something that was readily discussed. Even though I come from a family of doctors and physicians, it wasn't something that we as Black people kind of readily discuss. Went off to college, didn't really have a self-care plan, mental health resources in place, and really started to struggle with my mental health, and had 2 experiences with suicide attempts. And after my second suicide attempt, as crazy as it sounds, I knew I wanted to live, and to do so, I was really going to need to change things about the way I interacted with my mental health and well-being. Really started to put things in place, accessing resources, so therapy, individual, group, but also working on my coping skills and my self-care methods. Kind of to your point, we all experience stress and anxiety, and that's something that I think is really unique as Black women and girls, that we experience high levels of pressure, especially when it comes to academics or success, and we tend to want to take care of others before we take care of ourselves. And for you to be mentally healthy and well, it's so true what they tell you on the airplane, to put your mask on first. So I started to learn what it looks like to put my mask on first, to make sure my cup is filled so that I can help others. And those are the things that really led me to wanting to start an organization, create a space where young Black women and girls feel empowered to be educated about their mental health and well-being, but also to access resources so that we can make sure that we're mentally healthy and well.
I think that's so awesome. And thank you for sharing that with me. It's so important, like you said, to have spaces for us where we can just be ourselves and be authentic and express what we're feeling in the most genuine way possible. And I feel like that's something that I'm still searching for and looking for. I love being a college student and having so much access to more information and mental health professionals, but sometimes it's really hard to know who to go to that actually resonates with my story and can not even just relate, but can allow me to have the space to exist as fully as I want to be. So do you have any advice on finding those resources that are specific for you?
Yeah, and I think that that's important. It's one thing to go to therapy, but therapy is an experience and it's a journey, and making sure that you find the right fit, working with a provider that you feel comfortable opening up to, those little secrets or those things that are even hard for you to articulate or even think about. Those are the things that you should be working on in therapy. So a few suggestions on finding a therapist and then finding the right therapist. Today, with the pandemic, this is actually one of the positives. Teletherapy has expanded significantly, meaning that if you live in a rural community, if you live in a community where there's not really providers that look like you can see any provider that's in your state. Even some states allow you to see providers that are across state lines as well. So highly encourage people, if you've ever thought about therapy, if you're thinking about therapy, this is the time to access it. A lot of providers are seeing people virtually, and there's a lot of low cost and even some free options out there. Looking at something like Open Path Collective, where providers are offering on a sliding scale. So sessions are between $45 up to like $60. Also looking at organizations like Black Girl Smile, like the Loveland Foundation, that offer therapy assistance programs where we'll actually cover the cost of you working with a therapist to start out if you have financial need.
As I think both of us know, talking about mental health isn't really that normal in the Black community. I feel like we're moving in the right direction, but growing up, it just wasn't something that we did. So how do we figure out ways to continue this conversation going, but not even just within our community, but like our friendships? Because I know for me and my girlfriends, we talk to each other about everything. We will talk about our days, about school, about our problems, but I would love to figure out ways to also make sure that the conversations are beneficial and not just trauma dumping on one another. So when discovering that community, how can we figure out ways to help each other?
Yeah, it's really important to have community to build a strong support network. But we do want to recognize limitations. You want to recognize the limitations of others, but also recognizing your limitations. If you find that a friend or a loved one is experiencing something that is outside the scope of encouragement and supportive language and supportive actions, and they potentially need to work with a licensed mental health professional or see a provider that's a part of the medical community, I highly encourage you to suggest that. There are tactful and sensitive ways to do that. Again, you want to make sure you're recognizing your limitations. Also making sure that you're checking in with your friends. We all have a lot going on. So making sure you maybe start a conversation with, do you have the time and space? Asking someone and creating that opportunity for them to set those boundaries and having some of those authentic conversations about boundary work and about, things that are off limits, things that are off limits in regards to communication topics. But it's really important to make sure that we start to deepen our relationships, and that not that we're just asking for support, but we're also offering support as well. Because again, we all are experiencing a lot right now, and we want to make sure that our friends and our family members, our loved ones, that we can have productive conversations with them if we do need support. And the best way to do that is to make sure that they're in a good headspace, a good mental space to actually have those conversations with us. So again, just making sure that you're checking in with your friends, having those authentic conversations, but setting boundaries when necessary.
I love what you say about setting boundaries and like starting that conversation with, are you in a space where I can share this with you? Because giving someone that opportunity to say yes or no is also, I feel like, giving them a chance to use self-care on themselves. I never would have thought of it that way, but I feel like I'm always afraid to say no or to say, I don't want to talk right now. But I think I should also think about using that as a way to take better care of myself and my own mental health. So I love what you said about that. And I'm also curious if you could give us any specific resources for other girls like me who are just looking to learn more, maybe about Black Girl Smile, maybe about different resources online, just so we can continue having this conversation.
Yeah, certainly. And I think to your point, we want to make sure that we're really intentional about our mental health and well-being. Just like we go to the doctor, the dentist, to be preventative, to make sure everything's going well, to get tips and advice on ways that we can kind of improve. The same is true for your mental health and well-being. We want to make sure that we are acting in intentional ways, but also in preventative ways as well. So some of the resources that I would suggest for training, so if you want to learn more about mental health and well-being, things like youth mental health first aid, crisis intervention trainings, or even something like QPR, which is question, persuade, respond training, can be really helpful, just so you're prepared if you experience a mental health crisis or someone you know experiences a mental health crisis. Also, accessing resources to find a licensed mental health professional, things like Open Path Collective or Psychology Today has amazing filtering options, especially if you have insurance. You can go on there and filter by your insurance, look for specifically African-American female providers, and even get down to their treatment modalities or issues that they specialize in. Also, accessing resources like Therapy for Black Girls, awesome resource for female providers of color, looking at Loveland Foundation, Black Girl Smile, the Boris Henson Lawrence Foundation that has therapy assistance programs if you're struggling with financial need to work with a licensed mental health professional. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention some crisis resources. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, if you know someone who's experiencing a mental health crisis, highly encourage them to check out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline or the crisis text line. And then lastly, take some time, take 5 minutes after this, in between meetings, in between calls, just Google some resources that are in your area. You shouldn't be looking for crisis resources during a crisis. You should already know what is available in your area. So again, highly encourage everyone to just take a few minutes to know what resources are readily available for you within your community.
That's awesome. And I feel like I definitely resonate with that, because sometimes you're like, okay, wait, is this a moment where I should be looking for help? Is this a moment where I can be looking for other resources? But also, like, not even questioning, just saying, you know what, let me just Google, let me just go online and see what I can find out. And you learn so much. So thank you so much for sharing those resources and having this conversation with me. I feel like I've learned so much, and I hope that everyone in the audience has also learned a lot too. So I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to keep the conversation going.
I'm so excited to be welcoming back Lauren Carson, Executive Director of Black Girl Smile. So given everything that we heard today from our speakers, our community voices, and special guests, what thoughts do you have in closing, and what would you like people to leave with today?
I would say one of the biggest things that I hope everyone takes away from this space and this amazing event is we need to ask for help. If we're struggling with our mental health and well-being, make sure that you're reaching out to trusted loved ones, mental health professionals. None of us need to suffer or struggle in silence. That's really difficult to do as women, as girls, as Black women, as Black girls, but it's really important to make sure that we're mentally healthy and well, that we access resources when necessary.
Love it. Well, thank you again. Big hugs to you, big kisses. And hopefully next time we do this, we can do this in person. Have a wonderful day, Lauren, and thank you again. As we are wrapping up and begin to go our separate ways, I want to leave you with these wishes that come from my heart. I wish you the strength you need to take on all the highs and lows of your mental health journey, a community that supports you, self-love, and the knowledge that you are always enough. Progress so that you can grow and reach new heights, and peace and stillness whenever you need it. Thank you all for being a part of Let's Talk. We are so grateful for you and to our community members who spoke with you today. What a truly amazing group of women. Now, this whole event is going to stay right here on katespade.hercampus.com. So maybe you'll share this conversation with family or loved ones as a first step to talk about mental health. Or you can go back and take some notes for yourself. And we want to hear from you. So please share your feedback in the form below to tell us what you want to see and hear in our next Let's Talk event. Remember, if you need mental health support at any time, you can text KS Helps, that's KSHELPS, to 741-741 to connect with Crisis Text Line in the US. And you can find more on all the amazing resources that we talked about today listed below, and visit Black Girls Smile at their website linked below for more resources that serve and stand for young Black women's mental well-being. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in today for talking with us. To stay in the loop about our next event, be sure to drop your email in the form below at katespade.hercampus.com. We see you, we love you, and we hope to see you next time.